to order this meeting of the Maine Township Board. And I think the first thing that we should do is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Assessor Cry. Here. Highway Commissioner Bouvet. Present. Clerk Giovanna's here. Supervisor Diamond.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee Horvath.
Here.
Trustee Maher. Here. Trustee Eagle. Leave is on his way, so we're moving.
All right, let's start with our agenda. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 26, 2024 board meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 26, 2024 board meeting. Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Supervisor Diamond.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Horvath.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 26, 2024 special board meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the November 26, 2024 special board meeting. Second.
Any questions, comments, corrections? None. May I have a roll call?
Supervisor Diamond.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Horvath.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
Thank you. We now have a motion to approve the general assistance expenditures.
Motion to approve payroll for pay dates of December 6, 2024 and December 20th, 2024, and general assistance checks number 55604 through check number 55635 in the amount of $39,302.71. Second.
All right, any questions or comments?
Supervisor Diamond. Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Horvath.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
We have a motion to approve the road district expenditures.
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve payroll for pay dates of December 6, 2024 and December 20th, 2024. Road district checks number 23718 with check number 23764 in the amount of $133,361.28.
Second.
Questions, comments, anyone? Roll call, please.
Supervisor Diamond.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Horvath.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
And may I have a motion to approve the general town fund expenditures?
Motion to approve payroll for pay dates of December 6th, 2024 and December 20th, 2024. And general town fund checks number 61517 through checks number 61586 in the amount of $301,454.29.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Supervisor Diamond.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Horvath.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is public participation, but as part of that, I'd like to bring up one member of the public who we're particularly happy to have here, and this is Linda Centrale. Linda, would you please maybe come up to the microphone and sort of explain what you and your organization have been doing to benefit the Maine Township Foundation? I'd like to mention that Linda has been doing this, namely working on the crop walk for this year, 40 years. 40 years. It's hard to believe. She doesn't look old enough to be doing this for 40 years. But she has, and more recently in this area for 32 of those years. Is that right? So it was held a little bit earlier this year, and I understand you have some facts and figures to
I
give
do
to
some
us.
interesting stuff. I'll try not to take forever. I've been something 40 years ago. Lots to say, but I won't.
Is the microphone on?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, I guess Talk louder.
There you go. There, that's it.
Okay. So as Karen said, I've been involved with this forever. Back in 1985, our associate pastor called me and wanted to know if I would represent my church, Our Lady of Ransom, at this meeting for a crop walk. I don't know what the heck a crop walk was or anything, but he said so, so I went. And I've been there forever. And that's what I say about a lot of things that I do. Once I enter someone's life, I'm hard to get rid of. So there I am. And at first, we were part of the Great Northwest Walk, which was in Norwood Park. So soon after I got involved with that, they didn't have a coordinator, so I sort of by default became it. But the funds were used different places there, so I don't know how much of it was designated to here. Probably not. There was Salvation Army and stuff like that. But then some of my people said, why don't, if we create a walk that's in our own area, maybe we'll have more people to walk. So in 1992, we created the Niles Park Bridge Walk. So that's been in existence, like Karen said, for 32 years. But and just a little history on the crop walk itself is that it was born in 1946. An organization called Church World Service came to be. And their mission was to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, comfort the aged, and shelter the homeless. And they would, by freedom boats and ships, would provide food, clothing, and medical supplies. And then in 1947, Church World Service joined up with Lutheran World Relief and Catholic Rural Life Conference to create the CROP, the organization called CROP, which at the time meant Christian Rural Overseas Programs. Now it has evolved into meaning communities responding to overcome poverty. So, in 1960, the crop walks actually evolved. And instead of using freedom trains and ships and all that stuff to send them actual things, people would walk and get sponsors. And then that money would be designated 25% to whichever a particular walk's designated agency was. So the Maine Township Food Pantry has been our designated agency for almost 32 years. And then 75% would be used by Church World Service to decide wherever the needs were greatest. And if there's a disaster here or overseas or anywhere, they're right there helping. They're physically there. And you don't hear, unfortunately, much about them. I've told them, you should advertise yourself a little, because people hear the Red Cross is there, who's there? It's like, well, who are you? They don't want to spend much money. They want to waste money on promoting themselves. But anyway, so that's kind of a brief history of how CROP began and what it's evolved into now. Now, this year's walk, we had 212 walkers, 11 other churches involved. We raised $32,390, of which approximately $8,097.50 are going to come to the food pantry. We just don't have the check yet because a few more funds are dribbling and drabbling in. But our walk was very successful, and we really need to thank Jack and his EOM crew, because Jack had never been involved with it before, so after investigating the walk route and everything, it was fine that him and his gang came and they assist us just going around. So if there's any dilemma that comes up, we've never had any tragedy, anybody gets sick or hurt or anything, but it's just nice to have their presence around to stop us at corners where people may not want to let us walk through them, but they have to with this truck sitting there or this person standing there. So that was a great help. And the figures about the stuff are very impressive. I worked in a bank for 55 years, so I'm a number person. So I was concocting these things the other night. Okay, from 1992 to 2024, the Niles Park Ridge Crop Walk has raised $795,541 $1,055, of which, including the money that we don't have for you yet this time, the 25% of that is $198,889.11. So we're pretty pleased that we could help the food pantry out that much. It averages to maybe around $6,500 a walk, which isn't a fortune, but our walk is so well respected that the representative from Church World Service always wants to be at our meetings. He says we are just a mighty little walk. We're consistent. We don't give up even during COVID and stuff. If people wanted to walk all by themselves, they could do that singularly, or when people got braver, then you could do just a couple people from your church or something. We never gave up, and even in those months, we were amazed how much we were still able to accomplish. So we're really proud of ourselves, and that's why I'll do this forever. So you'll see me here year after year after year. I'm already 77 years old, and I don't care. I'm shooting to be 100, so you'll be stuck with me for a long time. So anyway, thank you for having me present this stuff, and I'll see you again next year. Thank you.
Linda, would you wait a minute so we can get a picture with you, if you don't mind? It's right up here.
We're going to have another picture when the real check comes.
Well, yeah, I understand we don't have to check right now, but I think you're good for it, because you always do show up with the check eventually. You do. We also want to thank you, because she couldn't be here, she's another long-time.
She's a treasurer.
Of the walk, and so thank you.
For sure, I'll thank her for you.
And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Linda, what do you ask, how many things have you had to release in all those years?
Please.
These.
Me? Yeah, nothing. I'm a pretty darn healthy old lady. Good for that, man. Thank you, thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I understand there are no other requests for public participation. So, all right, fine, we will move on. And our agenda here for the introduction of our new food pantry director, Michael Farrell. Michael, would you stand up? I think a number of you, maybe all of you, have had a chance to meet Michael already. He's been very busy. As you may have heard me mention, this time of year is an extremely busy time of year because of the large number of donations that come in at this time from individuals and from grocery stores, other companies, and so forth. So it's been a very busy time, and Michael has stepped right into the job and really taken the helm. So thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate it. We're glad to have you join us.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now we have a presentation about the salary survey that was done by the MGT company, and Katie Yee is here today to give us that presentation. And I understand she's going to be using the whiteboard to do that. And if you need any assistance, I think one of our staff members can provide that.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I talk pretty loud, but use the microphone too. All right, so again, my name is Katie Yee. I am with MGT Formerly, we were WHR, so for those of you who've been in the public sector for a while, you may have known us under our old name. I've been with MGT probably just about 3 years now, working primarily on the classification and compensation studies throughout Illinois, but I also work in other states as well, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, and Vermont. Prior to that, I worked in human resources for close to 30 years, and I worked primarily with DuPage County government and the DuPage County Health Department, so you may be familiar with those two organizations as well. So tonight what I'm going to present to you is the results of the compensation study that we did for the township, a little bit about the process and so on. Get my mouse going here. Great. So our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the scope of work for the study, the market survey or salary survey process that we conducted, the proposed compensation plan, the process behind implementing a compensation plan, and then future administration of a compensation plan, and then obviously time for questions. I'll also show you a couple of the tables in the report, and we can talk about those as well. So why a compensation study? Why would a organization want to do something like this? Well, it's really considered to be kind of a best practices in human resources. You know, as I mentioned, I was in human resources for quite a while, so us HR folks, we really love compensation and classification. But it really helps you to decide as an organization, are you maintaining consistency with the market around you as far as, you know, pay and benefits and those types of things. For this particular study, we focused on pay. But it does help for planning, personnel expenses, cost of living increases, you know, if you're doing contract negotiations, those types of things as well. Sorry. So scope of work. With the compensation study, there's a lot of bullet points up there on the slide. But basically what we do is we do a market survey. And when we say a market survey, we establish a set of comparable agencies that we survey during that process. Once we get that analysis back, we analyze the data, we make some recommendations, we fine-tune those recommendations with the organization that we're working with. We put together a draft report, we do any types of presentations like this, and then we finalize the report. So determination of comparable agencies or entities or townships in this case. How we do that is within each state that we work in, we use an established set of criteria. Within the state of Illinois, these are the 8 criteria that we use when establishing comparable agencies. The reason that we use this set of criteria is because most of the data is available on the Illinois Controller's website through the annual financial reporting process. So in that respect, we know that we're getting relatively apples to apples kind of comparisons, except for those few communities that don't necessarily report in a timely fashion. But then we also use proximity. We use Google, good old Google for proximity, and population and per capita income. With those 2 factors, we turn to the census. So we are using the Census Bureau quick facts for that information. So what we do with this 8 criteria is we start by, so for this particular study, we started with a broad reach, and we looked at all townships really within, you know, northern Illinois, so to speak. And then we apply these 8 criteria, and we assign scores to them to decide which one of those townships kind of rises to the top as being most comparable to Maine Township. And again, it's an established set of criteria that we use consistently across kind of the state of Illinois. So what we came up with were this list of townships, which was quite a bit actually, across the scale. These were the townships that came up with at least 32 points on a scale of 100. So what we do then is we put together a market survey. Is that okay? We put together a market survey, and what we do with the market survey is we do an online survey tool, and we include little descriptions for the positions that we're surveying, and we send it out to the comparable agencies. Once we send that out, we ask them a couple times then to get their information back. And what we're looking for is salary range minimums and maximums, and then actual salaries. And that's the information then that we use in our analysis. Salary data that's collected through a market survey is often considered to be, the current market or the current pay of, what positions are being paid within your comparable agencies. So then from there, we take all that information and we kind of crunch some numbers and we do some analysis with it. We do clean the data that comes back to us. That's often a question that I get asked. As we're reviewing the data, as it's returned to us, if there are outliers that seem like really too high or too low, we might reach out to those agencies that we surveyed and ask them for additional information, or we might take that information out of our analysis. So we do a cleaning of that data as well. But then what we usually do is we come up with proposed salary ranges for the positions within your organization, your township. And we typically recommend what's called an open range merit plan. Now, I just want to preface that by saying that every agency or every organization implements things a little bit differently, but our typical recommendation is to recommend an open range merit plan. And what that means is that you have salary ranges for your positions, and they have a minimum and a maximum, and that really there's flexibility for things like hiring within that minimum and maximum. And employees move through that minimum and maximum based on whatever increases are approved, each year through your budget process. There's different types of, some organizations you may have heard of that use like step plans. Those are kind of defined increment plans, and those have more structure to them and are typically a little bit more rigid. That's why typically MGT does recommend an open range merit plan. So the other point to talk about with the proposed compensation plan is that when we looked at the data, we collect all the data and then we break it up into averages, we break it up into percentiles, and it's common in the world of compensation to talk about percentiles. So what you'll see is that what we recommended was a set of ranges based on the 50th percentile of the data. What does that mean? Well, the 50th percentile basically means the middle of the market. So as we bring all that data back and we look at it, it means that 50% of the organizations that we surveyed pay higher and 50% pay lower. So it's kind of right in the middle. It's not the same as an average, it's the 50th percentile. It's kind of right in the middle. So then as you go from there, 60th percentile would mean basically that 40% pay higher and 60% pay lower and so on. We typically don't recommend anything lower than a 50th percentile because we really want, the whole goal of a compensation study is for you to maintain competitiveness. So again, that's why we would kind of say that you want to at least be at the market when it comes to what your proposed pay ranges are. I'm just going to take this a little bit. So the proposed compensation plan that we came up with for the township has 10 grades or...
Reference what page we're on, if you can. I'm not sure if you know.
That one would probably be 12 or 13.
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
The proposed compensation plan has 10 grades. Is it correct? 10 grades, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Now, one of the things, we break those grades up into bands, as you'll see here. We've got an administrative technical band. We've actually got 2, one that's kind of a part-time seasonal and one that's more of a regular kind of position. And then we have another band that's assistant directors, and deputy administrator, and then the last band is the administrator. How do we come up with these bands? That's another question that I often get asked. And that is based on the market data. So when we're looking at the data, we kind of see natural breaks in there. And that usually tells us where those bands kind of go from one to the next. So that's how we come up with that. And then when we're establishing ranges, we like to have a consistent methodology within each band. So within each band, we went with either a 30% or a 40% range spread. And so that's the difference between the minimum and the maximum. So you can see with those kind of seasonal positions, we just went with a 30% range spread, but with the more regular positions, we went with a 40% range spread. We typically don't recommend anything underneath under a 30% range spread. Usually 30, 35, or 40 is what's standard within the market. Right, I lost my mouse, sorry. So proposed implementation. When each organization is implementing their salary study or their compensation study, everybody does it a little bit differently, right? But that first bullet is really the only kind of primary recommendation that MGT always has. And that is that if through this study we've identified some positions that are like falling below the minimum of the proposed range, our recommendation is that you would bring those positions up to the minimum as soon as possible, as soon as like budgetary, situations allow you to do that. And the reason we say that is really because what that has shown now is that that particular position is being paid a little bit lower than the market. So you want to be able to bring that position up as soon as you can. The rest of the recommendations, if an employee's pay falls right within the range, then realistically, that means that incumbent is being paid what the market is being paid. And then the compensation, so if anybody's pay falls outside of the range or over the max of the range, then what we usually recommend is maybe that position, there's kind of a hold on that until the range catches up. But again, each community, each organization that we work with handles it a little bit differently. So, it just kind of depends how we would want to implement that. We're always available to help with implementation. That's part of the service that we provide is, after the finalization of any study, we're always there for questions. We can help with those kinds of things as well. So future administration of your plan. Okay, so now you have salary ranges. What do you do with them? Well, now you also have an established list of comparable townships, right? So each year what we recommend is that you reach out to that established list of comparables and ask them, hey, what are you guys doing? What does your merit look like? What does your cost of living increase look like? That type of thing. And then you can collect that data back and you can use that for your own little analysis and decide how do we want to proceed. And some years you might adjust your pay ranges. Some years maybe you decide to leave them the same. It just kind of depends on what's going on in the market. We also do recommend though like some kind of formal analysis or review every 5 to 7 years tops. Because as we know, especially since COVID, we were talking about COVID, right? Things have just gone crazy in the employment market. 1 week it's up, 1 week it's down. You're never really quite sure where you stand. So these studies are actually very popular. So that is my thank you. But now that I did that, I don't know how to exit out of here from here. I have to come over here. Oh, wait, here. You did it for me. Alright. So I pulled up the report, and then I was going to scroll down to the table. Sorry, I don't want to make you dizzy. And it looks like some of you were already kind of looking at this stuff. So I want to explain it, and then, you can
Page 12, right?
ask me some questions, yes. So what we have here in Table 1 is clearly job title. Proposed grade or new grade. So currently, this is not completely aligned with what your current structure is because you don't have grades right now. But whenever we're putting together kind of a recommended compensation plan, we like to use salary grades. Each grade is a bucket of positions, like positions, based on scope of work, duties, responsibilities. We also do what's called a classification study, and that's when we, align positions based on some of those things. But in this case, we did it based on, we did the buckets based on the market data, and also feedback from the team that worked with us on the survey process. Under this set of columns here, you have the 50th percentile salary survey data. So again, that's that data that I was talking about that's kind of the middle of the market. So when you go all the way back at the very end of the report, you see all those overwhelming tables with the data we collected. Look down at the 50th percentile line, and that is the line that we used. And why did we use that line? The reason we picked 50th percentile is because as we were comparing the market data that was coming back to your actual salaries, the 50th percentile seemed to align and be the best fit. We then modified that to an hourly rate. We have current salary in here, and then we have the proposed salary ranges down here as well. And then when you go then to that next table here, that's just a summary like we showed on the other slide of the proposed salary ranges. And then an hourly rate calculated out based on 40 hours per week. What questions do you have?
So I have some questions, but if any of the other board members want to go first, do that.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, go ahead.
So these figures that you have in front of us, they're all based on 40 hours. Is that correct?
The hourly?
Yeah,
Is that- yeah.
it's full-time employee.
Right, but, so are you talking about the current employee information, the proposed ranges? The proposed ranges are based on, the proposed ranges are based on annualized amounts collected through the salary survey. If your particular township uses a 40-hour work week, then in order to calculate that hourly rate, you would calculate it back based on 40 hours.
So then I'm using the last column on my page 12. I'll be using the last column, which is the proposed salary range, 50th percentile. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay, so that is based on a full-time employee.
yes, that would be a full-time rate.
And that range, are you considering the length of employment within the township? I mean, you can't,
So the-
someone, a newbie coming in, you can't.
Right, so the proposed range is not specific to an individual person. That proposed range is specific to the position. And then within that range, you might have a new person that you bring in near the minimum, although you might have a new person whose qualifications, blow you out of the water, and so maybe you want to bring that person up a little bit higher within that range. But that range is associated with the position. So it's not, it is associated with the people in the position, but it's associated with the position.
And then that would be consideration,
It would be-
length of employment also.
Right, the person might fall at a different spot in the range. If somebody's, I worked in the public sector for a long time. We have a lot of longevity, right? So you have people that move up to the top of the range because of length of service. So, it's not uncommon for that to happen.
I just made a comment, then you get fired to put a new person in so they can start graduating. You answered my question?
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Anyone else want to go with the question right now, or you want to?
I guess I was just curious in looking at the comparables. You included not just townships, but you included like City of Des Plaines, Village of Niles, City of Park Ridge. They don't really, their structure's different than ours in terms of like their budgets are much bigger. Like
Yeah.
they get a much bigger portion of the property taxes. We only get like 1.5%.
Yeah, great.
So
That's a great question. So we didn't run them through the factors. We
Okay.
included them because of proximity.
okay.
Because chances are, you might have an employee that's eyeballing a position over at Park
I see.
Ridge, right? So you want to kind of collect that data. I always say when we're collecting data, it's better to cast a wide net and see what you get back versus like limiting your pool. So in this particular case, we decided to, survey some of those municipalities. And you're correct, I was in county government. Usually the municipalities paid higher than we did. But it's always good to have that data and look at it and see, how you might be able to use that to your advantage.
All right. I'd like to look at one of the supporting sheets as an example.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to go to page 38. And the reason I've chosen this one, it is a vacant position, so it won't, discuss anything that has to do with anyone that is currently working here. And this is page 38, are you on that right now?
Yeah.
Denise Berger?
Yep.
Is this the right one? Okay. All right, okay, fine. I just want to go through how you compiled the underlying data that eventually fed into the summary, which is on page 12. So if we look over, just starting on the left-hand side, you have all, well, first of all, I think you said you sent it out to 32 entities, 32 villages or
I think it
townships.
was 30 total,
30,
and then we had
okay.
20 or 22 came back.
Okay, so maybe a third, or 2/3 responded.
We had a very good response.
But of those that responded, sometimes they responded for just a few positions. It's not like they responded to all 40 positions.
Right.
So
Right.
sometimes they might only respond for a couple.
Yes.
So we see that, I think, illustrated here for caseworker. And for instance, Niles Township, they gave us a range, but there's no one actually in that position under actual salary. And Northfield Township gave us a range too. Salaries apparently that they have created, a range that they've created, but no one else, except for comp analyst. Now, would you say something about comp analyst? What is comp analyst and who's in comp analyst?
Sure, so Comp Analyst is a survey tool that we subscribe to. It's sponsored by salary.com. It collects both private and public sector data. And so we used, hold on, I can scroll down here and tell you what we used. What does it say? Salary range doesn't say out there. So for the Comp Analyst, we usually use all industries within, and I think we use Park Ridge. It's in the report, so I can scroll back up and double check on that. But, so again, Comp Analyst is a tool that we subscribe to that provides up-to-date data, and it's useful when we don't have enough data points, or if the survey has more positions in it or less positions in it than the actual organization does. When we do a market survey, we typically don't survey for more than 40 positions, because when the receiving agency gets that survey, if they see something that's got more than 40 positions on it, chances are they're not going to respond. So we usually survey for benchmark positions. I don't think we had to do that in this particular case, but it's always nice to fill in with Comp Analyst data.
All right, so after you got that information, you took, for instance, under minimum rate, you have 87,000, 52,000, 53,000 from the 3 different minimum rate. You average those out, and then we're across from where it says average, that's the average of those 3 numbers, right? Or
Correct.
average or the median.
Yeah, so you've got 2 buckets down here. You've got the range data, and you've got averages going across, and then you've got the percentiles of the range data. And then the bucket down here is actual data, and that refers to the actual salaries. In most situations, we prefer to use range data, because kind of going back to that conversation we had earlier about longevity, there's a lot of different factors that go into an individual's actual salary that we may not be aware of. So we do prefer to use range data in as many situations as we can when we're doing an analysis, but we will use actual if we have enough data points and it's available to us.
All right, so we can see how you get the average for the minimum rate and the maximum rate, because you're taking the average of those three previews above it. And then our actual salary, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers that you can average together, and it comes out to $54,825. That's how you get that average, or also known as the mean, right? 54,825?
That's your average, yeah.
Okay, fine. But then when you make up the
average is 60,
No.
The range data is 54?
For the range data, your average is 64.
Yeah.
So this is actually a really good example of why we use percentiles. And quite honestly, it's very common in the world of compensation. My previous employer, I worked with a different compensation methodology, and they also used percentiles. Because as you can see, based on our 3 data points here, this 87,000 up here is making our average pretty high. But then when we get down here to our percentiles, it's pulling what the ranges, the percentile ranges are. So, yeah, it doesn't, average and percentile are not the, 50th
No, the
percentile
average
is not
is
the
the same
same.
as the mean, and the median is the same as the 50th percentile. So you're looking at the median when you're looking at the bottom. So when you start with 50th percentile, the minimum to the maximum amount, that you pull out the middle number, middle number and the entire range. And then here's what you do is you add a certain percentage to that to get it to be the 60th, 65th, 70th percentile, just adding it up like that, right? All right, and then you do that also for the actual salary too, correct?
Yes.
Or the average salary, also known as the mean. You create a 50th, 60th percentile and so forth under the actual salary too. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, all right. And, just one other question. You have, in many cases, an actual salary that is an hourly salary and also a yearly salary. And the townships don't necessarily report both to you. They sometimes will give you one or the other, is that right?
Right, if we got an annual, we calculated the hourly over there based on 40 hours.
Or do you look at the yearly amount?
We use the annual amounts when putting together the proposed ranges.
So you multiply 40 hours a week by 52 weeks, and that's the number that you divide into the annual
It's
salary?
28 per year, right?
I'm sorry, what?
2,080 hours per year is 40 hours a week.
All
yeah.
right. So you convert it either way, depending on what they give you. Okay. All right.
But you don't necessarily know if the number they gave you is for a part-time or a full-time person, though, right?
We might question it, and we might ask if, or we might remove an outlier.
Okay, I just, when we're looking at this one, like,
The top one, the 26 is a
Yeah.
little,
so I just wondered if that was because it's a part-time person.
yeah. But in this particular case, it wouldn't impact our analysis because we did use the range data for our analysis versus the actual salaries.
All right, so that's the first block of numbers where it starts with range data and it goes down to 80th percentile. Then there's a break there, and then it says actual data. Well, what actual data are we looking at that's different than what we've already seen?
Okay, so this information right here is the percentile data of the actual salaries that were reported. When we don't have enough range data, we jump down here and we use this actual data to create a range. So we go 10% below this and 20% above this in order to give ourselves a range. Again, our preferred methodology is to use a range whenever we can. It's a better indicator of the full market, the full picture of the market. But if push comes to shove and we have enough actual data, we will use that actual data as well. Because when we work with smaller communities, smaller agencies, smaller townships, they may not have salary ranges. They might only have actual salaries that they can provide us. And so we want to be able to use that data. We don't want to negate that data.
So, sorry to belabor this, but I still don't understand. Under actual data where it says average, you have 49,342 to 60,307. Where do those numbers come from?
It's all of these numbers up here in the actual column. And then from here, we take it and we create ranges with it. So yeah, 10% below and 20% above.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions on that page before moving on to other questions?
I had a question on
Yes.
page 38.
With
Page
the-
38 list that you directed here to says caseworker, but it doesn't say what department. If you go back to page 12, the only title I see anywhere, caseworker, says caseworker of general assistance. It's the only title I see there. So I'm wondering, it seems like it's a very uncommon position. None of these townships apparently have someone with that title. That's why it says not applicable to multiple entities.
They might have also given us data that we removed if it wasn't applicable.
Yeah.
So that could be, sometimes, for example, we get an hourly rate and we email them back and we ask like, what's that assigned to, and you want
And-
so
And
some of the,
if you look at the previous page, 37, I thought caseworker is under senior and disability advocate. If you look at page 37, that's the title that immediately precedes caseworker. So I'm not even sure what caseworker means, and that's why I was wondering if that's really an important statistic in this document. It doesn't look like it is, because there's not a lot of information on that particular job.
Yeah, this-
All these others have a lot of details, on it, a lot of statistics.
yeah, this caseworker general assistance is that's the range right there that we were just
Very
looking
nice.
at, the 50th percentile, so that is the data that was pulled over for that position.
Gotcha. So you think that's the same? Caseworker,
Yes.
general assistance,
Yeah.
there's no, okay, very good. It's just, okay, thanks.
And when we do the survey, we include the job title, but we also include a job description when we send out the survey, so that the folks that are responding on the other end, they can kind of look at that and match it up the best that they can.
Thanks.
Any other questions about page 38? All right, just to look at one other sample, let's look at page 26. This is regarding building monitors. Again, it's not regarding any particular person, it's regarding the position. There are more than one person in that position. So this one, it looks like none of the townships, or none of the villages or townships gave us any comparables, is that right?
Right, so
So-
we did the comp analyst, yeah.
So you're just relying on the comp analyst. And the range data is just identical to what comp analyst has sent to us, is that right?
Right, that's what we would have carried over into the percentiles. Now, I think, probably down here, we probably should adjust that, because it really is just the 50th percentile data is this 32.6 through 43.6. This is a little deceiving, that section of the report right there. We can modify that.
Can you repeat that, please?
Down here where it says 60th, 7th, 65th, 70th, and 70th, all these percentiles are the same number.
Yes.
That probably shouldn't be in the same number there. It's really the 50th percentile right there.
Same question, building monitor, is that connected to building maintenance director? Is that something, I don't see it.
No, that's a different position.
Person is exactly.
Oh, that's what you're talking about, building director? Oh.
So they're being $35,000 now? $35,360?
Well, that I think is turning the part-time salary into a full-time salary, which doesn't really exist. I mean, it doesn't.
Right, so combined their salaries are there?
So when we did the survey, you incorporated all of our titles, obviously, you knew that information. We gave you that information. These are all our titles and titles. So that's why building director.
Yeah, if we go here to building monitor on page 12, building monitor is in that grade level 1, which are those hourly positions. When we looked at those different bands,
Okay.
and they're both currently hourly rates.
Okay.
So,
Building monitor, okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have other questions perhaps about the report? Okay. All right, that appears to, do we have any staff questions from administration? Okay. That appears to be all the questions that we have right now. So thank you for your report. And if we have further questions, can we email those to you, or how would you want us to get those to you?
however you would like, you can email, you can give me a call, whatever works out. We can set up a Teams meeting. There's a good donut place around here, and you're going to come over for donuts,
Thank you.
All right.
That's about it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, all right. We don't have any old business, and we are in fact in news business right now, discussion of compensation report. Does anyone have any points they want to discuss now about the compensation report? I know you had it over the weekend, and a review of it now. So any discussion that you would like to have now, and comments you'd like to make about the report at this time? Okay, all right. Maybe a little bit more time to digest it would be beneficial. All right, let's move on to our next item, a discussion of tentative road and bridge budget. As we know, we first have to come up with a tentative budget, it's posted for the public to see, and then later on, 30 days, we pass the budget, the final budget. So, Ed, this is your budget. Would you like to say anything about it or explain anything?
No, just real quick, I mean, we put together this budget, obviously we have some finalizing for projects that we are planning for the next fiscal, but we pretty much narrowed it down to about as good as we're gonna get it, with minimal changes planned for the final draft. But any other questions that the board may have, let me know and I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board about the district budget? Okay, all right, fine. I do have a question about, and I can turn to Kurt about this, about the timing of passing this. It's got it all put together, and we don't actually have to vote on it at this point, is that correct? Or do we usually vote on this time?
So it's not a strict that you have to vote on it. It might be best practice just to vote on it, so that way everybody can say, this is the tentative ordinance that was approved by the board to be available for the public for 30 days.
Okay.
And then obviously when we publish the hearing notice, everybody will know this is the tentative ordinance that's going to be considered at that hearing that obviously we can always change.
Okay, all right, so we can do that in a minute. But I just wanted to talk about the timing of this. So we are at December 27th, December 30th right here. And our next board meeting will not actually be 30 full days ahead. So we have to wait till February to adopt the full final budget?
Yes, the tentative ordinance has to be available to the public for 30 days. And we have to publish notice, the hearing, we have to hold a public hearing, and that notice has to be published 30 days before the public hearing as well.
Okay, all right. So I think there's a question from Eva over here who sends out the notice.
Is it okay because the highway department budget hearing is already, legal notice went already to the newspaper. It's already available in our office. So the public hearing will be scheduled on January 28th.
I think that's what, January 20th.
So this is okay.
30 days before the public hearing, is that, what is it?
We have to publish notice 30 days before the hearing?
It's already published. It was already
That's
published
okay.
on the 25th.
As long as it's 30 days.
Yes.
So there's two 30-day periods. The tentative ordinance has to be available for 30 days, and then we have to publish notice 30 days in advance
Yes,
of the
so
hearing.
this one already was published on 25th, and for town fund and general assistance, it's gonna be published tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, on the first. So
For the
also, February.
February.
Yes.
All right, so February for the.
Town
Yeah, town fund, but, I mean, can we even do, because the road and bridge budget won't be posted until tomorrow at the earliest. We can't pass that until February either, can we?
No.
No.
We have that has to be available to the public for 30 days before we can vote on it.
But the road district is already, it has been already published.
We can hold the hearing.
So the, okay.
If we'd like to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What date again is that? You said 12/25, right?
Uh,
25th, you said.
So 12/25 was the
Christmas.
published, yes.
Christmas Day.
Yes,
Yeah, that means she's old.
It was published Christmas Day?
yes. I have the
Christmas Day.
cut out
That's
from
what she
the
said.
newspaper that was already published.
Okay.
These are, and ours gonna be on a news.
Okay, oh, okay.
And what?
And
New Year's Day. The newspaper is going out on Wednesday, and even if there is a holiday.
5 days ago.
Yes.
5 days ago. Christmas Day.
Just to focus on the road and bridge first, so we can do the hearing in
Yes.
January, but not pass the.
Can't take final action on it.
Until February. So with the full town fund, we can have the hearing in January. right?
February. Yeah.
February.
Because that won't be published until a
Yes.
few days from now.
Oh, right,
Can
okay.
it be passed on February?
No, we'll have to wait till March.
No, we can pass it in February if we're going to adopt the tentative tonight.
But it was not published. So it doesn't matter.
Road
So
district.
again, 30 days for, it's two different issues here. So there's the notice,
Okay.
has to be 30 days in advance of the hearing. And then we have to have the tentative ordinance available for 30 days prior to acting on it. So there's those two periods there. If we adopt the tentative ordinance tonight, then we can certainly adopt the final one in February. We'll have had 60 days available.
Yeah. Like modifications can we make?
Always. That's why tentative
Right.
means tentative, yeah.
Okay.
30 plus 30.
So we're giving more time than we actually
I don't think we voted on this one.
Uh,
I don't recall.
Before you vote on it.
We have to do it every year.
Public has to
Yeah,
have 30
it's
days.
mandatory.
Because I know that I have my budget from 60 days out before, but.
Yeah, it's different
General
for
town
the-
does not.
the general
Yeah,
town.
theirs been hit by.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so I think we left off, Ed, told us a little bit about the budget, and I think we're ready for passing a tentative road and bridge budget. So could I have a motion to adopt the tentative road district budget that we have before us this evening?
Okay, with Eddie, I'll make a motion to adopt the tentative budget that's in front of us today, ordinance 2025-RB-1.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Supervisor Diamond?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Horvath?
Yes.
Trustee Maher?
Yes.
Trustee Malik?
Yes. Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next item is discussion of tentative town fund general assistance draft budget. And I asked Ed for the last one, but I'm going to ask Dana about this one to talk about what type of draft we have here and how you arrived at this draft for us to look at this evening. And if there's any ways in which it's particularly tentative.
Very tentative. Okay, so yes, we should all have a copy in your board packet. So just to review, I know we do this every year, but all revenue and expenditure line items were reviewed with the respective department heads. And we took into consideration, well, hold on, let me back up 1 second. All revenue and expenditure line items were reviewed with the department heads to discuss the current fiscal year as well as projecting numbers for next fiscal year, 25-26. We took into consideration health insurance increases, building repairs, program expansion, computers, and other essentials needed. So for right now, some of the calculations that we did, because we don't have final numbers, is for health insurance, I put in an 8% increase. Meeting with Captain Sparrow, our insurance broker, usually tells me to put in anywhere between 5 and 8%, 5 and 8 or 5 to 10%. I don't know if you recall last year, the increase was only 4%, so I to put in a higher number, just because we're not sure, every year's a little different. And then I did a 3% increase as a placeholder for salaries until these can be discussed further, obviously, with the board, which you can do next month in January. We also looked at how we could streamline some expenses and identify some unnecessary costs, which we do as well every year, and some of those are possibly looking for grants, electronic storage of documents, going paperless or reduced paper, working with more organizations and collaborating current programming, and leveraging partnerships to acquire products and materials, and some other things, but these are just some examples. One key change I do want to mention, and Karen, if you want to give some further information on this, is that we did move the food pantry department out of town fund and into general assistance department.
Right, and due to a recent statutory change, we're able to do that now. And the general assistance fund actually is a little bit more, has more money in it, more money to spend than the town fund has. And it does seem appropriate to move it into the GA fund. Now, the funds that are going to come out of it still aren't that much because most of our food comes from the Great Chicago Food Depository, where we don't pay anything off. But we do buy some things to supplement those products. The food pantry also has toiletries and cleaning products and all kinds of paper supplies, toilet paper and paper towels and things like that. So it needs things that we can't get from the Great Chicago Food Depository. We spend money for that. We do have some expenditures. We have salary expenditures for 1.5 individuals coming out of general assistance fund. So again, it's all township funds, it's all IMRF, but it's simply a different fund to take those salaries out of than we have in the past. Because the general assistance fund is actually, has fairly high balances now.
So right now, the total budget increase is about $133,000 for town fund and GA combined. But again, this is a tentative budget. I think there's some more things we have to discuss. I could possibly have more firm health insurance increase numbers, and then again, salary increases really have not been discussed with the board. I also, things could change with line items over the next month or two as well in either direction. So.
Do we know what percentage that is, Dana? 133 up from approximately what percentage it went up?
I don't know, but I can figure that out.
Yeah, less than 5%.
Yeah, it's not very much.
Relatively small.
Right. So the overall budget is, let's see where we're at. Yeah, the overall budget is 5.4 million. So
Modest.
It's very modest.
Are there any questions? Comments?
Okay.
Good job, thank you.
Questions, comments, okay. All right. Not hearing any questions, I would ask for a motion to adopt the tentative town fund and general assistance budget.
Motion to accept the tentative town fund and general assistance budget, which is ordinance 2025-1.
Second.
If there's any other further questions, and roll call.
Supervisor Diamond?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Horvath?
Yes.
Trustee Maher?
Yes.
Trustee Belli?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Carried.
The next item, James asked to be put on the agenda, discussion of possible vote regarding the appropriate specific accounting with respect to the township employees, or I think he also meant elected officials probably, who did that too.
Right.
Who personally attended the toy conference on November 11th and 13th in Springfield, Illinois. So, you might think it'd be easy to calculate this, but there's actually different ways to do it that ends up in sort of widely ranging amounts. Now, when it comes to mileage, there's no question about that. That's pretty easy.
That's not the point of,
Okay.
that wasn't the point of my request.
Okay.
My request had nothing to do with reimbursement for mileage or anything. It was expenditures at the conference. It had nothing to do with that. And it was solely, but thank you for bringing that up as well, Karen. The real purpose I brought it up is it was my understanding that some of the employees who attended, who we encouraged to attend, namely Richard, Dana, Ava, and Kathy, may have had to use some benefits that they had in order to attend the conference. And that was the only concern I had, because it's my position that they should be credited for any accrued time or any benefits they had to take for being at the conference. I think it's part of their job. It should be considered part of their job. It helped our township that they were there. And that was my only concern, Karen, is that some of them may have had to take accrued time in order to attend, instead of having their benefits, wherever they were accrued at that point, shouldn't be modified at all for the fact that they attended. It helped our township that they were there. And that was my only concern, that some of them may have had to take time, that they accrued time that they were otherwise entitled to attend. And that was the only reason I asked to be placed on the agenda. Not about the mileage reimbursement, which I really didn't have an interest in. It was okay with me, whatever Dana did with those reimbursements from my perspective. So that was my only concern.
Oh, okay. I just understood what your concern was. And
Right.
so we actually have two things to discuss then.
Yeah, right.
In terms of taking benefit time, did someone have to take vacation time?
I believe that's my understanding. And I guess I phrased it kind of vaguely, Karen. I said appropriate specific accounting with respect to township employees who personally attended. So I should have been more specific, I guess. Just whatever benefits they had to take, it's my understanding.
Well, I think the question, we obviously had to go down the day before the conference started, so I think there was a question whether we had used our own time on the day that we had to drive down previous, or that we counted as our time.
Right. And maybe Pete too as well, he's an employee who's there, as well as Karen, who's an employee who's there. So you shouldn't have to take any time off to be at this
We
conference.
don't get any time off
All right,
anymore.
fair. So it only applies
We don't
to-
get any time, so that doesn't matter.
Okay, well, that's because we're so dedicated, you're so dedicated to these. The employees
Do you
should.
have to take personal time or vacation time?
No.
Well, I think we were supposed to use our own time on the day that we broke down because the conference technically didn't start. That's what was, I think. we were under
The day was,
impression.
what was it? It was,
So it was
when there was a holiday, what was it for?
It was Veterans
It was
Day.
Oh, Veterans Day,
Right.
So they want an extra day to be credited to them because they drove down on Veterans Day, and part of the day they spent driving to Springfield.
But not just necessarily Veterans Day. If there was any days at the conference that you had to use accrued benefits.
No, they
There
didn't.
weren't, that's not the case. All right.
I'm confused, 'cause I thought that.
Okay.
I thought
It was a 3-day
you used
conference, not one day.
Vacation time or personal time for your drive down.
Right.
Right, I thought we did too. I thought that's what was stated to us on Monday, that we had to use our own time.
That's my
What they
question.
want is they want a personal day or some day granted to them, an additional holiday because they didn't get to stay home.
In other words, a floating holiday.
Okay.
So we had to.
It was comp time.
Here's what it is, so we technically had to, I guess, work or drive down to a conference on a day that the township was closed, it was Veterans Day.
Right, you had a federal.
Right, it was federal holiday, but obviously we had, because of the distance of the conference, we had to leave the prior day. So we all, left around 1 hour and drove down, and really that was kind of a working day.
Yeah.
So the question was, can we take a floating holiday?
Like a comp
Oh,
day.
no, that's a comp day, and I think we were told no, but we could have misunderstood that.
I think if you took half a day to drive there, then you could get half a day of comp time that you would use later in the day or later in the week or, I mean, when I've done conferences before, if I've had to go down, like if I take 4 hours to go somewhere, that's my travel day, my 4 hours, and then at the end of the week, I just don't work 4 hours, like it just shifts.
Yeah, but
Oh, go
the
ahead.
veteran holiday, the federal holiday, regularly, if somebody work 1 hour, so she should get double. So if, let's say they travel 4 hours, they should be credited 8 hours.
8 hours, right.
Yeah, so my suggestion is we should give them 4 day, 8 hours, for another day they can off, because they work on veteran day. So that's my suggestion, is it's up to the board.
Well, does someone want to make a motion or something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
But the only reason I brought it up is I think they should not be punished in any way for the fact that they took the time to come down to the convention on a holiday. And however we want to credit that is okay with me by vote.
Well, I think it should be stated too, like for the future, I mean, I think it was probably I don't know if this conference is always sort of on the same time schedule. Yeah, so, I mean, just in the future, if somebody has to take off, just, have some sort of policy that if you are traveling for 6 hours, then you should get 6 hours of comp time, unless, it is an exception of.
Well, we
Right,
have
I'm just saying, just in general, like if you
We've
have
had
to.
employees going down the last several years, so.
Yeah, but even the working day, that's fine, but these are the holidays.
Yeah.
So by that logic, they get paid for Sunday. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's
Yeah.
extra hours for Sunday.
Yeah.
Because even when they got down there, it wasn't just the driving. Once they got down there, we all kind of networked with other people.
Right.
We really did start working kind of once we arrived.
Right.
So we did give several hours to the employees, even on Sunday.
Yes. Because you're working,
Correct.
the travel is part of the job.
Correct.
Oh, so you went down on a Sunday?
You just went on Sunday.
Oh,
but
okay,
it's
so you went on a
just- right.
Sunday.
And other years.
Okay.
Oh, Kathy went down on Sunday this year, but the rest of us went down on Monday, which was a federal holiday.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at the conference, that's your work time.
Right.
So was someone going to make a motion?
Yes, we are. And gentleman, Asit Malik is going to make the motion.
I can make a motion to credit 8 hours to those employees who travel on November, let me see the date exactly, it was November 11, Veteran Day. So they should be credited 8 hours for that day to travel to the Springfield.
Second.
Was that your understanding too, 8 hours?
Well, is that the general work day? Is
Yeah.
that
We usually
seven and a
do the
half?
whole day.
Yeah, that's 8 hours the whole day.
All right, yeah.
Okay, Any other, wait, okay, any other questions, comments?
Thank you for bringing it
Roll
up.
call.
Supervisor Dunn?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Horvath? Trustee Maher?
Yes.
Trustee Malik?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now for the other issue, which is actually what I thought you were talking about, was the reimbursements requested by individuals. And of the 5 elected officials that went down, there were 3, they used 3 different ways of calculating it. So I'm just looking for some consistent way, and I think the staff is looking for some consistent way as to how to calculate what people should receive in reimbursement when they go down.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Can we use this the way the state does it, which basically breaks it down in quadrants? So like for Springfield, you receive $54 for the full day, and it's broken down in 4 6-hour quadrants at $13 each. So basically, 6 a.m. to noon, noon to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to midnight, and then midnight to 6 a.m. So if you go, leave at noon, you get 3 of those quadrants would be $39. And if you stay 24 hours, you get 54. There'd be, and that's it, plus mileage, but if you drive. But you wouldn't have to turn in receipts, you just basically go by what the state of Illinois does. And if they're in another county, it's Cook County, it's $74, but it's easier, I think.
We do have this one from GSA. Are you saying the state of Illinois doesn't use the GSA one? Because we've got the GSA per diem rates, but the numbers that you were just referring to did not sound like they match what I'm looking at right here.
No, this is the federal one.
When we break it down, like this is what, at the library, this is what we use. Like, and when I used to teach, this is what we would use too. Like it's the federal one, like they break it down per, like, you look up where you're going. And you can go anywhere in the country and it gives you that rate. I mean, I think it's the same concept.
Yeah, it's the same concept,
But the way that we would always do it is it does give you a suggestion for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and incidentals, but then you just get that total, which in this case was $68. And the way we would always do it is just, you basically get up to $68 for the day. So like, if I eat a $40 dinner and have a $5 breakfast sandwich, as long as it's under the $68, then that's okay. And I would just have to submit my receipts, and then whatever I spent, I got reimbursed for the actual expense. I wasn't just given like a check for money I didn't necessarily spend. But then they also do this first day and last day of travel. So like if I'm driving down on one day, then I'll only get $51 because I might not have breakfast there, or I might not. And again, it's just what your actual receipts are.
with the other one, you don't have to submit receipts, you just break it down in quadrants and
But-
you get what you get.
We've currently adopted the GSA, so when we went through this last year, we did decide that for meals, it's based on the general services.
We did that last year. But
So if we were gonna change that, we couldn't do that tonight, we'd have to bring the whole
Well,
policy back,
why
just so
would
we know.
we be giving people money that we don't even know if we spent or not? Like just giving somebody, if you were there for 3 days and we gave them 68 plus
It's $54 for Springfield.
Well-
We're gonna spend that for meals.
Well, I know, but
And
it's-
it's your per diem, so it's for staying, it's for being out of town. So it's not.
My position on it, ladies and gentlemen, is make it as simple as possible. The forms that I had to fill out were as vague as could be. Description, total reimbursement line item, those are the forms we currently use for expense reimbursement.
I would just recommend.
It's just, it's
adopting
real
the
simple and
Illinois rules.
uncomplicated. It's a modest amount per day. And you can't go over that amount. That would be my, so make it as simple and easy and uncomplicated as possible.
It's, I mean, I don't know.
Once a year.
You guys were at a conference, I was at a conference at the very same time. I came back from the conference, I just saved my receipts, I photocopied them, I turned them in, I just added them up, I got reimbursed for that
Why
amount.
do you get $51 for the travel day? That's automatic. I mean.
No, I mean, if that's, they're just saying they're giving you a little bit less on that travel day because you're not gonna be there a full 24 hours. So like, you're not, they're just saying, you're not gonna leave, I didn't leave till noon and got there in the afternoon, so.
Right, but
They're assuming you're
there's
not
no
going
meal
to.
allowance in that, right?
No, that includes your meals, that
So you
includes,
still have to submit receipts.
yeah, you submit all your receipts.
I guess working for the state for 36 years, I'm just very used to it, and I think it's much easier.
I don't know, I just, as
So I
a,
would prefer using the state in Illinois, I would just prefer using the state, the way the state does it, but, obviously it's a board.
So explain this to us, can you? Because to me, this is vague. That's why what does that mean?
Well,
I think,
Kim, you're advocating an entirely different system.
Yeah,
than this.
right.
So she's advocating a state system, whereas this is a GSA system, which is our current policy.
I mean, I don't know, I just feel like you collect your receipts. you
Well,
submit
actually,
your
less
receipts.
money for the state than you actually get less for spring.
Right, I mean, I have no problem with these amounts, I'm just saying that you submit your receipts and you get reimbursed for what you spent. It just seems not responsible to just write everybody a check for X amount when you may or may not have even spent that much money.
And tell me this, Kelly, are you limited, you turn in your receipts, or receipts can't total more? You don't get paid for more than what the.
No, and I think if there was like an exception, you could bring it to the board and say, there was no restaurant in the area.
Just generally speaking, how would it work? So for instance, you spent $80 during the day, you have receipts for, you would just get 68. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what you do is you would add it up, so like, let's say you were there for 3 full 24-hour days. You would take that 68 times 3, and then whatever your receipts were, added up to that amount. If they added up to maybe one day I went for a little bit bigger dinner, and the next day I only ate a $20 dinner.
I think that's the way our policy reads as well. It says meal reimbursement is limited to the current US GSA regulations in place at the time the expense occurs.
I mean, I don't think we have to say, oh, you have to spend $16 on breakfast, you have to spend that.
Oh,
Like,
of course not.
I think that's getting a little bit too, if it's $68 a day, then, people just can, you just turn in their receipts for the meals.
Yeah.
And you just know that you've got $68 on average per day for their 3 days, then multiply that by 3, and that's how much you've got to spend.
Whatever you guys want, I still prefer the state, because I just think it's simplifying, and it's worked for 36 years.
Well, I could put that on the agenda for next time if you want to
But,
say,
okay,
going
so-
forward, we'll use
yeah.
the state. But I think for this one, we did have a different balance. We had a GSA policy in place.
Yes, okay, I guess I made some errors then as way I calculated it.
Well, I don't know that you did, because everyone seemed to use a different formula. And this really is very hard for administration, trying to figure out how to calculate it, when
Right.
some of us are asking for 2 to 3 times as much as the other, although we all aim pretty much at the same places.
Right.
So we just need a uniform system for doing this.
And that's, even if you had your receipts, then that's the amount.
Right, but it was misleading, well, I misunderstood, I should say. For the first day, $51, so that's travel day, so I just put $51 each
Forms
day.
are-
Gotcha.
I submit mine, and just said Dana deduct whatever.
We had
because it was just-
dinner.
The forms are so vague, it's that,
First night.
right? Just whatever I get is okay with me. These are the receipts. That's what I did.
I don't remember how much I
More
spent for dinner.
Spend
the first
time,
night,
what
but
time, which did I miss them?
I don't know, it's probably, I don't know.
We have to actually turn in
So I don't know where the
receipts.
receipts are.
Yes, you do have to return it.
You still have to receipt.
Plus we have to do a per diem figures.
So,
I mean, yes. But I don't know.
How many full days were you there, and how many?
we were there 2 full days
And then you travel.
and 2 travel days.
I just follow this.
So in theory,
So the first night we went to dinner, but I don't remember how much I spent. I don't remember where we went. Oh, we went to Open, yeah.
Actually, only there one full day.
238 would have been the max.
But I didn't eat it over.
wait, so how many days were you doing?
Yeah, we
I had
said-
3
Yeah, we ate in it.
We ate in, yeah.
So Pete, you said you were only there one day?
Yeah, because we got there Monday, the convention was all day Tuesday, then Wednesday morning, then we left Wednesday afternoon, so it was only
Yeah.
Okay.
two travel days.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be 170, would be, you know, you have up to $170 in receipts to send to my turn. But maybe it didn't work. I don't know.
Would it be that, would it be whatever is higher then? Like, do you want to do it where it's, you can either do it where it's just flat rate of whatever the next week, or what you spent, or what's higher, like, then what to do.
Right, that's the problem.
Well, so you were there one full day, which is $68, and then you traveled one day, and you traveled another day, that's 2 days of $51, so that is 170. So your receipt, you basically know ahead of time, all right, I've got 170 bucks to spend for meals. And
Yes,
then-
that's not the way I interpreted it, like I had one meal that was over what my per diem was, so I just put down the per diem amount, and I realized it, because I didn't spend anything the other days,
Right.
I didn't add that in.
Right, but I'm saying that you know that you've got this
Oh, I
amount.
get it, I understand, that's not the way I did it, but I understand, it makes sense.
Does the,
Well, I
you have to turn in receipts.
Right, right, that's
Yeah, but
No, that's up to us.
that was
Yes,
like,
it-
yes.
The board sets what that maximum is.
If it's over, you get the maximum.
Why don't,
That's what you're gonna be paid.
No, I mean, you should get more than you paid.
No, less.
Let's say one night we have a dinner, $80. I came only 28, because you say 28.
Well, right, and so that I think is, I think you just, I would not focus on those individual amounts.
I go by this.
Yeah,
Grace
but I would just
They
focus on
had the
this
meal at,
for the day.
Right.
at the convention.
Right. And if your total is over, you get the maximum only. If it's under, you get what you pay.
Right, but I'm saying if you eat a dinner that's $40 and you have a breakfast that's $5, then don't worry about, just worry about the total, like the total for the total for the day.
Right.
Maybe you just go to Starbucks and you don't love it, you know, I don't know.
So it's my turn to make the
Yeah, no, so, I know we went over the per diem rate, I mean, nobody's,
No.
so it's not like we're paying $400 for
No.
No.
So, am I hearing that it would, to make it simple, be okay to give, when people calculate, they have to turn in their receipts, just because the policy says that, but administration can pretty much ignore those receipts and just figure it out based on each day's full per diem rate.
Yeah, that's how
I
I would do
think
it.
only reimbursement for what the actual.
right, like you should.
Well,
If they only turn in $100 worth of receipts, then they get $100. If they turn in $300 worth of receipts, they only get $170 because that's the.
What's the money?
And is that the flat rate for the full time, not by breakfast, by lunch, by dinner?
Right,
You want
just,
by day?
just looking at the
You
day.
do it per day,
Right.
and then the per day amount is the maximum that you can.
Right.
But it could be less but not more.
Right.
So if you spend $24 on a day, you get $24. If you spend $100, the max is $50, you get $50.
I wouldn't focus on like per day. I would just
For the
say.
whole trip altogether?
Right, so you, let's say you've got one travel day, one full conference day, one travel day. So the travel days, they set an amount for your rate, which is $51. So those 2 days are 51. The day in the middle, which is the full conference day, is 68. You add those up, that's your total expenditure for your full time. So you know that ahead of time going in. You're like, okay, I've got $170 to spend over the course of these days. If I want to spend over, that's my prerogative, and that's just on me. You know, if I want to treat myself somewhere. But you just know that you've got this $170. I bring my receipts to you at the end. If I have $120 in receipts, then I get $120 back. If I go over the 170, then I just get 170 back. You know, so it's basically just a guide for you. But if there's a situation where you get there, you're at a place and all the restaurants are closed, the only thing you have is a restaurant in the hotel that has $50 meals and you go over it, then we can, make an exception.
See, that's why the quadrants work better, because you may be someplace where there's no place to eat, or you bring your own lunch, and you're still out of town. So the idea is you're out of town, so you get $13 each way. So maybe for breakfast you don't eat anything, but you eat, more of a dinner. It all adds up. It averages
Well,
out.
that's
You
what I
can't
mean.
make more than
Right, well, that's what I-
$54 a day, but they don't, it's not necessary to submit receipts. You just go by how many hours you're actually out of town working. It's just more simple.
What I suggest, if you want to do that going forward, we can put that on the agenda for next month. Going
Yeah.
forward, if everyone agrees, you can use the state system, which, but right now our policy says we have to use the GSA one.
Yeah.
So, but I think we can do this as Kelly just explained, that is, add up everything, add up
Yeah.
the 3 days, 2 half days, 1 whole day, whatever that total is, as long as your receipts demonstrate you spent that much money, you would get that much money, or you would get something lower otherwise. So
Well,
that's
right,
it.
and if you didn't submit those because you thought you couldn't, then just go close your bank account, highlight it, and we're gonna pay cash. Well,
Not gonna lose any sleep over it, but.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We should have everyone's receipts, I think it was just how to calculate it.
So I think some of us need to do our request over again.
Or I could redo them for you and send it to you, and let you know if it's, and then I make sure everyone's the same, but then I can send it to you for approval. And then we know, does that work, or you can
Sure.
put it on yourself?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I understand employees do it a different way too.
That's how we prefer.
oh, no, well, it should be, everybody does it the same way. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you have a receipt, you get reimbursed for the receipt.
We just put in the receipt, we do it the same way. Some of us have township credit cards, so we'll put it on the township card, so we're not necessarily getting,
Yes,
we're not getting reimbursed.
right, those aren't, those are separate.
But I mean, you can't go over the $170.
So, yeah, so I will say, right, because I have a credit card, a work credit card, and so that's what I use. I don't use my own personal credit card, I use the work credit card, but I still have to save the receipts and submit
Right,
them
and that
to
just-
show, and it still has to be under that amount.
Right, and the 4 of us who went did that.
Yeah.
All right, so I think, our understanding is, and I don't know if we actually need a vote on it.
No,
Okay.
this is just interpretation of
This
what our policy
interpretation
already says.
for employees and elected officials, when they travel to a conference, they get the per diem rate for a whole day and part day, add it together, and as long as they establish through receipts that they have spent that much, they get that amount. Otherwise, they get the lesser amount, whatever their receipts established.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, does everybody understand that? Okay, and administration, because you especially have to know how to do this. Okay. All right, that took up a lot of time. All right. Okay, moving on. Discussion and vote of agency funding allocations. Now, he's not here tonight, is he? No, he's not. No. Okay. But we do have in our packet a breakdown of what amounts were recommended for each one of the agencies, recommended by board members, recommended by individuals on the committee, the employees who made up the committee, the employee average, the board average, and the overall average. And finally, the recommendation. And,
I had a question on that one.
oh, yes, go ahead.
All right, I'm looking at this and I have no idea what happened. Everybody put in their numbers. Column, look at the final 4 columns, it's at the top. Employee average, board average, overall average, and then recommendation. In each of the top three cases, the final recommendation amount was adjusted for some reason. And in the first case, it was adjusted from 2,300 to 2,500. In the second example, from 47,800 to 48,000. And in the third, from 4,250 to 4,000 even. So who made that change after, because none of those numbers matched the employee average, the board average, or the overall average. So
That's a good point.
Yeah, it looks like they just ran.
That's a good point.
somebody just
I think
unilaterally
that-
changed those numbers. Who was that?
I think in yester's, they sort of rounded them off, but even so, that doesn't really totally answer your question, because how do you get 2,300 rounded off to 2,500?
Right.
So,
Or
that
in
I
some
don't
cases, you
understand.
got less.
Exactly. And it's right, exactly.
Why don't we just go with the overall average?
That's what I didn't understand. Why is that number different and how did
Or
that happen?
at the very least, if it's like, 3,375 and you want to up it to 3,400.
Right, average it up, yeah. I mean,
To the nearest hundred or
Yeah.
something. Up.
That was my only question. And if you go line by line, it looks like it was adjusted many times. Sometimes it's almost perfect. Like, for example, District 63, 24,000 even, but and the
Or
recommendation.
like Pickles Group, it was 7290 and they bumped it to 7,500 instead of like 73.
We don't know.
Yeah, right.
And there's no rhyme or reason for that. Why? I
Rich,
don't know
do you
how
have
that.
any idea why?
Yeah, why
I can answer
that?
that question, yeah.
And like if you look at Orchard Village, the average is 2,600, which is a nice even number, but the recommendation bumped down to 2,500.
Right.
Yeah.
What we've always done during our consensus meeting is to come up with an even number somehow. It makes the accounting simpler in terms of organizations sending invoices every month. And what we decided when we met internally this past cycle was to apply a rounding logic to each of the overall average numbers. So for any grant amount average that totaled $10,000 and above, we decided to average the recommendation to the nearest $1,000. For any grant recommended overall averages that were under 10,000, we decided to round to the nearest $500. So everything is either 500 or 1,000, and it's pretty similar to how we've done it in years
Oh, I
past.
see what you're saying.
Okay, but last year, I'm looking at 2024, 2025, Richard, and that's not what happened. The consensus recommendation was identical. Well, I'll strike that, and I see what you mean. Some of them are a little different. Like the consensus recommendation changed a little bit in some of the numbers. But then when we granted them, we stuck with exactly the identical amount that we recommended as the grant amount. But I see what you're saying, those
Yeah.
are slight adjustments. in the
Part
last
of the
year's
difference between that last year and this year is that we met to have our consensus meeting earlier than usual, before we turned in our final numbers for the board to be able to look at.
Okay.
So we didn't really have a need to meet again after we got everybody's numbers and then make those adjustments up or down.
Okay.
We did that before we turned in our numbers, and then just did a pure rounding.
And there's something in writing that says how we do, that our policy on that rounding up and down somewhere in, right? That
We don't have a written policy on that, but it just makes sense from a bookkeeping standard. A lot of organizations get confused in terms of the amounts that they have to invoice us every month. So if it's a round number, it makes it easier for them instead of invoicing us like $453.26, something like that. So just a round to the nearest 500 or 1,000 makes the accounting easier.
Sometimes it went up and sometimes it went down. What's the rationale for that?
Right, because it went down.
Sometimes it goes down.
Rounded.
Why?
Because it was.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, it's pure round.
It's closer to the lower number than to the higher
So it's not
number.
necessarily rounding
I
to
see.
the nearest number, it's just rounding to the nearest.
1,000.
Yeah, to the nearest 1,000 for 10,000 above, or to the nearest 500 for under 10,000.
I see. And based on the overall average number, right?
Based on the
Each case,
overall
not the board, okay.
Yeah, so if you look at that overall average column,
Right.
the only changes that were made from that to the recommendation were just rounding to either the nearest 500 or the nearest
Gotcha.
1,000.
So it's all 0 or 500 for, okay.
That's correct, yes.
All right, that's the reason. Okay.
That solves everything.
There was a logic to it.
Do we agree with that logic after we've taken all these numbers together? I don't. What's the point of taking all the numbers?
Looking for average.
We're
not gonna put it up by $1 difference.
Had to get gypped a little bit.
Well, like right now it goes down 100 bucks.
Right.
250.
But Asif says that the bottom numbers are only 5 up 3, but that's a good
That's
point.
us.
That's just the total. That doesn't make these other agencies happy. Like, for example, where's a big difference?
Are the invoices automatically generated once you put the number in?
What's the
It's
biggest?
a manual process every month that Ian has to do to send the invoices.
75, we do it 18,000, so 450.
Yeah, so some of them are significant. So to me, it defeats the purpose of having everybody put in their numbers. And sometimes it's unfair to somebody's identity. You could argue that, right?
I just feel uncomfortable going down on something like that.
I guess I don't understand why,
Yeah.
bookkeeping wise, you can't just round to the nearest, up to the nearest 100 and
Never go down,
That's-
always go up. That's bad.
even just the nearest 100, and why that would not be feasible. I mean, I understand you're saying it's easier for them to remember this amount, but
Yeah, like 2,600, how hard is that to divide by 12, right? Or to remember? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we can apply whatever logic you want to apply to it, that's just what we decided in the meeting to do, which is similar to what we've done before, but we can certainly change it.
Someone want to recommend a
I mean, I guess my personal suggestion would be to just round them all up. If you have to round anything, round it up to the nearest 100.
And that would include, regardless of what the amount is, in the thousands or tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Just go to the nearest 100.
That would be my suggestion.
So
it's-
like for Glenkirk, it's 50, the overall average is 5,700, so just leave it at that, right?
Well, right, yeah, I would just leave it. And say
9,900.
Knock at 9,900, I would leave it. 3,375, just go up to 4,400. I mean,
250 would be 12,300.
yeah. I mean, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Can win 4,600, give them 4,600, not 45.
50 would be 7.
Yeah, Richard, is there any reason why we need to pass it tonight? And then we come back next month with a chart that shows us what it would be if it went up?
Or we can just,
It usually takes a couple of months for all of the contracts and documents to be signed, so in order to get that done by March 1st, the start of the fiscal year, when organizations start getting payments, we usually like to get it done in December.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if the board's comfortable in just making the change without seeing what the final total is.
So that would make, if it's a small.
And if the recommendation is round up to the nearest 100, that's.
Take
that's
every
easy.
number that is in the overall average and round it to the nearest 100.
Round up in every case.
Unless it's already
right,
Uh-huh.
yeah, if it's already rounded, we don't.
So we don't want to go down for Jamie.
Right, even if it's a small amount.
Yeah, we can easily do that, Ian can put that together tomorrow, and then start getting the contracts out to everybody. So that's no problem.
Yeah, some of them don't even have to change.
So,
Just have to include that in the motion.
Yeah, so I have a motion to approve the agency funding recommendations, which would be determined by taking the overall average listed on our chart and rounding each one of those numbers up to the nearest 100, unless it's already at a 100 divisible amount.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Supervisor Diamond?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Norbat?
Yes.
Trustee Maher?
Yes.
Trustee Maliki?
Yes. All right.
I'll take care of that.
Well, you, maybe, Richard, could you maybe just send around to us, maybe just email us
Kelly,
the
just
final.
finish yours.
Thank you, Richard, for that explanation.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right, we are at official reports now. And as usual, I'll start with you, Susan.
Just a couple items. I want to let everybody know that there is a program for seniors that are suffering paying their real estate taxes, and it's called Real Estate Tax Deferred Program. It's applied to the treasurer, but it's actually funded by the state. It allows the senior up to $7,500 on their primary home. They need to be 65 years old by June 1st. They can't have a household income more than $65,000. They have to occupy the property for 3 years, and they have to be current with if they're making any kind of payments for the house or their insurance, and no property taxes that are past due. They can obtain this application through our office or through the treasurer. There is a date on this. It has to be in by March 1st, so it's really important. And this is really good program. They actually lowered the rate. It's 3%, and you do not have to pay back until you sell the property or deceased, and then you pay it at that point in time. So this doesn't have to be paid back until then. And it used to be 6% interest, now it's 3% interest. cards. Actually, the tax bills right now are online at the treasurer's office. This is for snowbirds, to pay their real estate taxes, but also keep in mind, before tomorrow, actually, you can, defer this on your income tax. So if you wanted to pay the first installment that is originally due by March 1st, which will be actually a little later because March 1st is a weekend, but you can pay and get it off your income tax for snowbirds that would not pay. That's all. Thank you. Oh, okay. Are you?
Just with the colder weather coming up, just a reminder to try to slow down and drive carefully. Watch out for the snow plows, the drivers, and just check on your neighbors, seniors in your life. Other than that, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks very much.
I'm a senior now, Ed. Does that mean you're going to be checking on me here? Yeah, I am. I told you. Thanks. Things have been busy with the clerk's office as usual, passports, doing notaries. A lot of FOIA requests recently. This month we've gotten a total of 9 requests relating from everything from election, pertaining to the election, I should say, capital improvement plans, property permits and violations, as well as purchasing records. So I know this takes a lot of time for Eva, our department, and a lot of the other departments that we have to sometimes get the information from. So just want to say thank you to everybody for that. I know it's a lot of work and definitely takes up a good chunk of your time. And Happy New Year's to everybody as well.
Thank you. That's it. Did you have anything you want to say?
I just want to say everybody happy holiday and happy new year. Nothing to report. Be safe, don't drink and drive.
Okay, Jim?
Just want to commend Marie again for these very interesting events she had in the month of November. Dancing, horse theater, Neil Diamond musical. We got to start bragging about more of these. Holiday tea at the Drake Hotel. Lucille Ball, informative luncheon. So just seems to me these events are just great, and we need to get a list of all these great events we sponsor together through maybe Marty McAlpin and put together that list of us. Yes. It's just all, yeah, they're just awesome. I'm afraid to admit that I might qualify. Oh,
Don't be
no.
sorry, they got your bucket.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just, yes.
All you have to do is sign it.
Each day goes by, you get closer to the mainstream, to the stream.
You can be very young and still trying to.
That's right.
I hope you're right about that, but anyway, congrats, and just thank you for everybody's support, and have a great New Year, everybody. That's it. Thank you.
I, along with everybody here, really enjoyed our Mainstreamers lunch, holiday lunch that we went to a couple weeks ago. It was very nice, as always. And then I was going through my lovely Township Perspective magazine, which is just always exciting to read. And it was so nice to see so many of our Township people in here. There's a really cute picture of Monica in here, where we won the Illinois Township Senior Services Association, awarded Mainstreamers the Innovative Senior Program of the Year Award, which was great. And then there's Richard in here, 2 pictures of Richard, accepting some awards. And then there was a lovely picture of Pete in here as well. He's holding a flag.
Autograph that for you if you'd like.
Yes, so it was very nice to see. And if I missed anybody who was also in here, but it was nice to see it. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, the Mainstreamers luncheon was beautiful as usual, so I just want to thank Mainstreamers for organizing that. And I just want to wish everybody a happy New Year, healthy, prosperous, and remind everyone that there will not be a neighborhood watch meeting in January because it would fall on New Year's Day. So,
That's a good excuse.
so we're not going to have it in January, but they will resume in February. So that concludes my report.
Okay. I just have a few things. I did didn't get it on our schedule yet, but anticipate that we're soon going to be putting a box or barrel out front for people to deposit their burned out Christmas lights. So we will be recycling those, but hopefully we'll get that up later this week so people can deposit those there. Just a couple of pieces of information. I applied for a grant from Rivers Casino. I'm told they're very generous, so we'll see if we get anything. And also, as a result of something that Richard told me, I'm also looking into a grant that we might be able to get from Displays. It's very big for our transportation program here. Speaking of transportation, you probably have seen at your place a commendation of Marty Zimmerman, who is our driver, and people who love him. We also got a commendation from an individual who has worked with Luce, and he was very happy about the way he was treated. He just really appreciated that. And then I got a letter from someone who appreciated me calling Flood Brothers to get his garbage cans. So it's part of my job. Anyway, we're glad to serve the members of the public in that way. So that is all that I have to add. And then I think we are down to a closed session. So we have a couple things to discuss. And one is, well, there's two things. And so I'd like to know if I could have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing security procedures and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, threatened, or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, staff, the public, or public property, and two, discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
May I have roll call?
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Horvath?
Yes.
Trustee Maher?
Yes.
Trustee Malik?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't anticipate that we'll take any official action. That is, I don't anticipate we'll go back into open session after the closed session. If that happens. Okay, we are out of closed session now. We have nothing else on our agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Supervisor Diamond?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Horvath?
Yes.
Trustee Maher?
Yes, please.
Trustee Malik?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.